Long ago, in a land bathed in golden light and ancient winds, there were no books or diagrams, only breath, stillness, and the earth. The early sages of India, the rishis didn't speak of Kundalini in grand ways. No one taught it in classrooms. Instead, it was known through silence, through sitting, through listening to the body and the breeze. They described a quiet force like a serpent coiled at the base of the spine. Not a dangerous snake, but a sleeping one, peaceful, waiting, coiled gently, resting like a secret beneath our everyday lives. This serpent, they said, was pure potential, a reservoir of inner power, hidden not outside, but within. And so they sat, on smooth stones beside rivers, on soft grasses in forest hermitages. They breathed, they watched the stars. They listened not to outer noise, but to the whispers inside their own being. Over time, they noticed patterns. When breath was slow and steady, something changed. Not in the world, but within them. A warmth, a presence, a gentle rising sensation from the base of the spine upward. But it wasn't lightning. It wasn't wild. It was like a warm candle rising slowly through a hollow tube, a presence soft alive. This, they whispered, was the awakening of Kundalini. The rishis spoke of prana, the subtle life force that moves through every living being. Like the wind, it can be seen, but it can be felt. And where there is prana, there is life. They noticed that prana moved through invisible channels in the body, called nadis. There were thousands, but three were most important: Ida, Pingala, and the central channel, Sushumna. Sushumna was the still river in the center of the spine, the silent road through which Kundalini would eventually rise. But for this to happen, the body had to be prepared, not through force, but through gentle practice, patience, devotion. So the sages developed asanas, or postures, slow stretches and folds that open the body as energy. They created pranayama, the art of breathing in certain rhythms to move prana consciously, and they discovered mantras, sacred sounds like Om, that vibrated through the body and calmed the mind. All of this was not to conquer Kundalini, but to invite her, to make a home gentle enough, quiet enough for the serpent to slowly stir from her sleep. As time passed, the seekers of Kundalini began to speak of chakras, energy centers inside the body. There were 7 main chakras, they said, like lotus flowers blooming up the spine, each one a wheel, a soft turning circle, each with its own color, sound, and meaning. At the very bottom, Muladhara, the root chakra, where Kundalini sleeps. Then Svadhisthana, the sacral center of emotion, Manipura, the solar center of will, Anahata, the heart of love, Vishuddha, the throat of truth, Ajna, the third eye of wisdom, and at the crown, Sahasrara, the 1,000-petaled lotus that touches the infinite. But don't worry about memorizing them now. Just imagine a gentle ladder of light inside the body, glowing quietly, not flashing, not burning, just there, soft, warm, and waiting. When the body is still, the breath steady, and the mind quiet, the serpent stirs. She rises slowly, like honey dripping upward, one chakra at a time. No force, no rush, just awareness, just peace. By the time centuries passed, the teachings of Kundalini spread to monasteries tucked away in the mountains. Monks would rise before the sun, in the dark blue quiet of early morning. They'd light a lamp, ring a tiny bell, sit cross-legged, breathing in rhythm with the earth itself. There was no ambition to awaken anything, just presence. Kundalini was not a goal to chase, but a deep listening. Some monks said it took years to even feel a flicker. Others said she came when the ego was gone. Always, it was the same truth. The serpent rises in silence, in patience, in surrender, not in noise, not in pride. Only when all striving is set down does the energy rise like the soft tide of a moonlit ocean. Sun-dappled shade beneath the banyan trees, far from cities. In the dry hush of the Deccan Plateau, there were little villages where old mystics lived quietly among the farmers. These were not loud sages, preaching or claiming power. No, these were men and women who smiled easily and spoke rarely. Some wore saffron robes. Others wrapped themselves in plain cotton and sat alone in the mornings, their eyes half-lidded, their breath slow, as though following an inner tide. They had no books, and few followers. But every morning before dawn, they would sit under trees or beside wells, and breathe gently in silence. This, they believed, was the real way to awaken the inner serpent. Not with force, not with violence, but with patience and stillness. This was the heart of pranayama, the ancient art of breath control. It was believed that the body had energy currents, and these could be purified not by words or even food, but by the quiet rhythm of breath. One of the most peaceful of these villages was somewhere in what is today Maharashtra, and in that quiet settlement, there lived a gentle woman named Ma Yanakai. She was old, but no one knew how old. Her hair was white and long. She wore no jewelry. Her hands were soft from years of tending the temple flowers, and though she rarely spoke, everyone in the village knew. Ma Yanakai was different. When little children had nightmares, their mothers would whisper, "Sleep now. Ma Yanakai will keep you safe." When someone fell ill, they brought water blessed by her silent prayer. And when the monsoons came late, the villagers asked her without words to sit beneath the sacred fig tree and simply breathe. And so she did. She never preached. She never claimed miracles. But every morning, just before the first rooster cried, she would sit in stillness, her spine long, her hands resting on her knees, her breath barely visible. It was said that she could slow her breath to only a few times a minute. That when she meditated, the birds would gather nearby and fall into sleep. They believed gently, and without fanfare, that she had awakened the serpent, not as fire or lightning, but as a stream of golden peace rising through the body, through every breath. This was Kundalini, not in myth, but in life. No ceremonies, no bold awakenings, just a quiet unfolding, like the bloom of a lotus in moonlight. And in this way, the ancient understanding of energy continued, passed not through books or loud declarations, but through quiet observation, loving service, and patient stillness. As the centuries passed, such quiet yogis appeared in forests and mountains, not to teach, but to live in tune with the inner river. Some lived in Himalayan caves, others in forest hermitages, but always they followed the same path: stillness, breath, kindness. Kundalini was not a fire to burn the world. It was the warmth that softened a frozen heart. And as long as someone sat in stillness somewhere in the world, the serpent continued to sleep and slowly awaken. Imagine a small, overgrown courtyard in a 12th century ashram. Ivy climbs the stone walls. Fragrant jasmine blooms at the corners. A slow breeze carries the scent of sandalwood and smoke from a distant cooking fire. Birds hop softly along the cobblestones. A copper water pot stands by the mossy steps. In this peaceful place, a student named Devi sat cross-legged in the shade of an old neem tree. He had come from a faraway town, barefoot and tired, with no possessions but a cloth bag and a question in his heart. What is real power? The teacher he sought was not famous. His name was Swami Rudranath. He lived simply, slept on a mat, ate rice and boiled greens, and never gave lectures. But his eyes, it was said, saw straight into a person's soul. When Devi arrived, Rudranath did not greet him with fanfare. He simply pointed to the garden and said, "Tend it." So Devi did. For days, then weeks, then months, Devi weeded, watered, trimmed, and swept. No teachings were given, no mantras shared, only garden work, only silence, only breath. At first, Devi was frustrated. He had come searching for awakening, for fire, for vision, for bliss, but all he found were dirty fingernails and sore knees. Then something began to change. Not all at once, but slowly, gently. The scent of the earth started to feel like home. The rhythm of digging matched his breath. He began to notice the life in small things, how ants carried crumbs with purpose, how the vines curled toward the sun. He began to smile more, sleep better, speak less. One morning, as he pulled weeds under the rising sun, something quiet stirred inside him. A warmth, not physical, not emotional, but something deeper. It wasn't dramatic. It didn't make him tremble or weep. It was like a soft lamp lit within, illuminating each breath from the inside. He felt his spine gently lengthen. His breath slowed, and he simply sat. Swami Rudranath came later that morning, leaned on his staff, and smiled. "Now," he said, "you may begin." This was the way of the older teachings. Not sudden, not flashy, not mystical in the loud sense. The serpent of Kundalini, they believed, did not rise in a roar. It rose like smoke from incense, slowly, silently, only when the heart was ready. This practice, simple, humble, rooted in everyday tasks, was once the hidden path. In many parts of India, from Kerala's temple gardens to Kashmir's mountain springs, seekers were taught in this way, not through techniques, but through living. Even today, in tucked-away villages and forest ashrams, this quiet method continues. A path where the body is treated gently, the breath honored, and awakening seen not as a goal, but as a flowering. And so as Devi quietly tended his garden in India, far across the sands and oceans, the silent thread of Kundalini knowledge moved in other lands, in other forms. In the cool, dry mountains of ancient Tibet, monks in ochre robes wrapped themselves in woolen cloaks against the chill. Their temples stood high above the clouds, carved into stone cliffs and painted in reds, golds, and deep blues. Here, they did not speak of Kundalini with the same words, but they, too, spoke of energy, of the subtle winds, or lung, that moved through the body's channels. They practiced slow, deep breathing, visualization, chanting, and inner heat practices that allowed them to sit warm in snow-covered caves. In a monastery hidden behind a frozen waterfall, an elder monk once told a student, "Stillness reveals warmth. Warmth reveals light. Light reveals the nature of mind." Their idea of awakening wasn't loud or sudden. It was like a small flame kindled inside, a warmth born not of fire, but of deep stillness. Many travelers from the east and west came and sat with these monks. Some stayed only a short while. Others remained for years. One Greek traveler, Nikos, wrote in his weathered journal, "They spoke little, but their silence was louder than books. I felt heat in my spine one morning, not from the cold, but from something else. A kindling, a presence, just like in India. They did not chase the fire. They welcomed it like an old friend who came quietly when the heart was clean and the breath was slow." And further west in the deserts of the early Middle East, some mystics whispered of the inner fire of the soul. They didn't use the word Kundalini, but in soft candle-lit chambers, Sufi dervishes turned in rhythmic circles, chanting in devotion, their bodies spinning like planets, their hearts opening like flowers. They said the body was a lamp, and love was the oil. When the soul turned fully toward the divine, a flame lit within. And in the forests of Europe, in places now forgotten, old women and hermits spoke of serpent wisdom wrapped in cloaks. By the hearth, they told tales of energy that slept in the bones, waiting for a song, a breath, or a prayer to awaken. Always gently, always slowly, never by force. The common thread was not the name. It was the pace, the humility, the waiting. As the quiet breath of ancient wisdom moved through continents, it reached the old lands of Greece and Rome, places where temples once stood proud. their white columns rising like prayers into the sky. Though the language was different, the longing was the same. Philosophers like Plato and Pythagoras spoke of the soul as a being of light. They said that within each person was a divine spark, a fire that came from the stars and had merely taken a human form for a time. They didn't call it Kundalini, but they believed in ascent, a movement of the soul upward through understanding, beauty, and harmony. Pythagoras, who many know only for numbers, once said that music could heal the soul, and his students sat in silence under moonlight as he played the lyre, allowing the vibrations to cleanse them. Some wrote of warmth rising through their bodies, of a peace that lingered long after the music faded. And later, in early Christian mysticism, in the desert caves of Egypt and the hills of Palestine, the hermits and anchorites spoke of an inner fire too. These were the desert fathers and mothers, monks who withdrew from the world not in fear, but in pursuit of something deeper. They fasted, prayed, and listened, not for voices outside, but for the whisper within. Some wrote in their faded manuscripts of a warmth in the chest while praying. Others described visions of light rising from the base of the spine to the top of the head, filling them with compassion and stillness. They did not preach about this. They simply lived it, quietly, patiently. Over time, these gentle insights faded into silence. As cities grew louder, and outer knowledge began to replace inner knowing, the age of machines approached. But even then, in dusty old libraries, in quiet abbeys, and in secret gatherings, people remembered the warmth. They remembered the breath, and they waited. As the centuries drifted forward like a quiet river, the ancient teachings of inner power, breath, and stillness never truly vanished. They waited like seeds under winter snow for the warmth of curiosity to return. In the 19th century, as Europe expanded its horizons, travelers, philosophers, and scholars began to look eastward again, not for conquest, but for meaning. The noise of factories, the ticking of clocks, and the fast pace of cities had begun to tire the hearts of many. People longed for stillness again. Some found it in old books. Others journeyed far, crossing seas, mountains, and deserts to sit at the feet of quiet sages. One such seeker was Sir John Woodroffe, a British judge in colonial India. While he worked by day, at night he studied Sanskrit texts under Indian scholars. Quietly fascinated by what he found, he wrote under the pen name Arthur Avalon, introducing the West to the concept of Kundalini in his book The Serpent Power. The name alone stirred something ancient in many readers. Soon, others followed. Swami Vivekananda stood before audiences in Chicago in 1893, not as a preacher, but as a voice of old wisdom. He spoke of consciousness, of breath, of stillness. He said divinity lies not in distant heavens, but within every person's heart. And in that same era, quiet meditation halls began to open in the West. In small wooden buildings or humble homes, people gathered not to be taught, but to sit, to breathe, to feel. The practices were unfamiliar, but the peace was unmistakable. They began to hear the silence again. The Kundalini was still described as a serpent of energy sleeping at the base of the spine, but no longer in faraway jungles. It now stirred in urban apartments and candlelit classrooms. It rose in the breath of a nurse after her shift, in the stillness of a poet late at night, in the walk of a carpenter who paused to admire the sky. Not all who felt it used its name. Some called it joy. Some called it warmth. Some said nothing, but changed quietly from within. As the 20th century rolled onward, interest in Kundalini grew, not loudly, not in crowds, but softly, in circles of meditation, yoga, and healing. Books were written, retreats were held, and teachers emerged from many backgrounds, some from India, others from Europe, America, and beyond. Some warned that Kundalini was not just a pleasant feeling, but a deep responsibility that, once awakened, It moved the heart toward truth, toward a life more honest, more still, more loving. It was not a path of escape, but of return to the self, to the earth, to the moment. And even now, as you rest and listen, there are thousands across the world sitting quietly, eyes closed, listening not to the noise outside, but to the gentle rustling of leaves within. Tonight, as you lie there beneath the covers, letting your breath slow and soften, imagine the world as it is now, but quieter. Picture people across countries and time zones, gently exploring something they cannot see but deeply feel. Not everyone calls it Kundalini. Some simply call it peace, energy, spirit, or presence. Yet, the feeling, the warmth that begins at the base of the spine, the subtle awareness that travels upward like a thread of golden light, is known by many. In silence. In today's world, life is often busy. Screens blink, messages come and go, clocks tick forward. Yet, behind all that movement, the ancient teachings of the breath and body still remain hidden in plain sight. Kundalini practice today is no longer locked away in temples or mountains. It has quietly found its way into homes, studios, and even hospitals. In cities like San Francisco, London, Tokyo, and Mumbai, people gather in stillness, listening to soft music, breathing slowly, or simply sitting in the dark with eyes closed. There is no rush, no drama, only the breath in and out. Some teachers today emphasize safety and softness. They speak of grounding, of keeping one's feet on the earth, even as the inner light rises. They teach that Kundalini is not a goal, but a process. It is not about fireworks or mystical visions, though such things may happen. It is about balance, humility, and healing, and above all, surrender. For when one no longer chases awakening, it arrives naturally, like a bird that lands on an open palm, not forced, but welcomed. In quiet corners of the internet, seekers share their stories. A musician in Denmark speaks of a warm surge that rose during a song. A gardener in Oregon describes an afternoon when time disappeared while tending roses. A nurse in Seoul remembers a moment during night shift when, pausing to breathe beside a window, she felt a silent bliss rise from her spine to her crown, unexpected, peaceful, and brief. These are not gurus or mystics. These are everyday people touched by something timeless. Many experience soft symptoms, tingling along the back, warmth in the hands, an unexplainable joy, or a gentle pull inward. And some experience nothing at all, but find themselves gradually more patient, kind, and quiet. That too is the awakening. Kundalini today walks softly, wearing many names and no name at all. It doesn't ask for temples, but for presence. It doesn't seek followers, only sincerity. Some sit in meditation halls, some walk in forests, some wash dishes while humming. All are on the same path, a path that wins not outside, but within. And perhaps, as you listen now, wrapped in this moment of calm, you too are closer than you realize. The body rests, the mind quiets, and in that stillness the ancient serpent sleeps, but listens. Kundalini, the coiled serpent of ancient wisdom, does not roar when awakened. It hums, it glows, it pulses like the silent roots of a great old tree, hidden, but alive. And in this final moment, we do not chase understanding. We simply sit and remember. Remember that this energy has been with us always, from the first spark of life to the final breath. It rests beneath the surface. It does not belong to any one religion, culture, or teacher. It belongs to the quiet within you. Centuries ago, a humble farmer in India may have felt a warmth rise up his back as he walked through morning mist. He didn't have a name for it, but he felt it. In the Egyptian desert, a priestess might have knelt beneath the stars, humming softly to herself as her body swayed to a rhythm older than thought. And in a quiet European monastery, a monk may have sat in silence for hours, his breath slow, his heart open, never knowing the word Kundalini, but living its peace all the same. This is not the energy of drama or spectacle. It is the energy of healing, of stillness, of quiet strength. Like a gentle stream that wears down stone, Kundalini softens the mind and awakens the heart not with noise, but with presence. As you lie here now, listening to this soft voice, you may sense a tingling at the base of your spine, or a warmth behind your chest, or simply a wave of calm moving through your body. That is enough. More than enough. No effort is required. No belief. Just stillness. The greatest teachers of Kundalini never shouted. They whispered. They lived simply. They pointed inward. And often, their most powerful teaching was silence. So tonight, let your thoughts grow quiet. Let your breath deepen. Let your limbs grow heavy. There is nothing more to learn right now. No need to seek. The energy you are looking for is already within you. It always has been. And as you drift, floating gently into sleep, know that something sacred sleeps with you watching, waiting, glowing faintly in the darkness beneath your spine. Kundalini does not hurry. It is patient. It will awaken when you are ready. Until then, let it rest.